You know, I just got off a stream after watching Dana White's Contender Series, week 2 of season 9, and I was thinking about coupling my breakdowns of the new Canada event fights that just got announced in with my review of the Dana White Contender Series card. Then the VOD got to be a little bit long, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make 2 videos. So this will be one upload. The other video will be a second upload. I'm not sure which one I'll post first, but yeah. UFC Fight Night Vancouver, some really solid fights just got announced. We have Reiner de Ridder versus Anthony Hernandez, Marlon Cheeto Vera versus Aiemann Zahabi, and then Kevin Holland versus Mike Malott, as well as Manon Fiorot versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. They're definitely going to add more onto this, but as far as what we've got right now, this isn't a bad lineup of fights. This is a better event than UFC Fight Night Brazil that's happening in October 11th, just based off of the main event right there. So let's talk about Reiner de Ridder versus Anthony Hernandez. This is a really cool fight, but what it means is that we are not going to see Khamzat Chimaev return for the rest of the year, because Abu Dhabi would have been an opportunity for him to make his next appearance. He had called for that date, and these are both of the contenders that make the most sense for him to fight at that time. Imavov and Brawley are likely going to have a bloody war, so they're not going to be able to make the turnarounds. Unless Imavov is able to Adesanya Kyle Bahalio and he's down to just make the quick turnaround in Abu Dhabi, I think that would be like 1 month's worth of time, but everything is just moving too fast. They're definitely going to need more time to put together an event. Historically, title fights aren't things that the UFC have ever rushed. And whenever it's a champion like Khamzat Chimaev, who has a lot of marketing value, they're not going to just throw him into a fight with whoever. It'd be like them just throwing together Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan last minute. They wouldn't do something like that either. Even though we'd love to see it, it just doesn't happen because that's not the way the organization does business. So yeah, Reiner de Ridder versus Anthony Hernandez. Stylistically, this is a fight that's going to favor Anthony Hernandez for the reason of, I'm going to go back to 1FC here. Malott versus de Ridder. Against these physical powerhouses, granted Malott was a sauced up heavyweight, right? These super domineering, overpowering grapplers give de Ridder trouble, and he's not able to work his jiu-jitsu. I think he would get smashed by Khamzat for that reason as well. Anthony Hernandez grapples like people played basketball in the 80s. This is just straight up bully ball on the mats, and I love watching it. It's my favorite type of grappling in the UFC. His style, it's productive, it's violent, there's action that goes on. He's not just smashing people in crucifix and in side saddle without doing anything, or landing little tapping shots without progressing the positions, or disengaging from the grappling entirely so he can actually hurt people. It just kind of happens in accordance with the way that he likes to fight. And that's why we love Anthony Hernandez, is because he isn't a smudge grappler. Reiner de Ridder, he's not much of a smudge grappler too. And there's a good chance, since Anthony Hernandez gets caught in all of his fights, one of those knees can burrow their home directly into the squishy organs of Anthony Hernandez and finish the fight before it even gets started. We saw Delidze was able to land some pretty solid shots. It was a reverse elbow that landed on Anthony Hernandez to get that fight going. So Reiner de Ridder could come out and do some ninja stuff, and he can finish this fight before we even get to like the middle of the first round, second round. It could be a very short night in the office for Reiner de Ridder winning this fight over Anthony Hernandez, depending on how he plays his cards. But if Reiner de Ridder isn't able to land that shot at the very opening and he lets Anthony Hernandez get going with his wrestling, it will be a very long night for him. He will be getting dominated through many different positions where he's going to be getting hurt as well. Because it isn't like Reiner de Ridder on the feet is the most defensively sound either. Anthony Hernandez offers a lot of danger there, equal amounts of danger in the stand-up and also on the ground as well. Robert Whittaker was able to drop Reiner de Ridder and chinned him. If that was a guy like Anthony Hernandez with more power, he likely would have gone to sleep in that very moment. So this is one of those weird fights where it's like there's a bunch of different contingencies that can unfold. De Ridder is a very unorthodox striker. He's also very powerful too. This guy is an ex-205er, we have to remember. He could catch Anthony Hernandez and put the fight away very early. Anthony Hernandez has the ability to catch Reiner de Ridder once he's worn him down and made him careless on the feet. It could be a counter off of one of these knees that are guaranteed to be thrown by Reiner de Ridder. One of these knees could finish Anthony Hernandez in the early going. Again, in the grappling, Reiner de Ridder could pull off a very sneaky submission because he's known for those, but it's the top pressure of these very strong cardio grapplers that give Reiner de Ridder problems historically. and I'm using Malott as my reasoning for this. It would have been nice to see what a ground scramble exchange would have looked like between Bo Nickel and Reiner de Ridder, but the fight never even made it there. In the clinch, Anthony Hernandez is very lethal, and so is Reiner de Ridder. We know what type of clinch work Reiner de Ridder is capable of, but very underrated is Anthony Hernandez in this clinch as well. And he's very good at chaining his takedowns from the clinch as well. So again, I'm going to give Anthony Hernandez the edge here as like an early prediction. I think that he probably wins. He probably finishes this guy. He's going to break him, and it'll be like within the middle rounds, maybe 3, 4, or 5 towards the end of the fight. But it's going to be another grindy and violent display of elite grappling in the UFC, and I'm looking forward to this fight. The next fight will be Marlon Chito Vera versus Aiemann Zahabi. And listen, Aiemann Zahabi, he was getting beat up by Jose Aldo in the early going of that fight. It's just that Jose Aldo has a combined total of 180 seconds of cardio, and then he gasses out. He was dominating the first round. Do you remember Marlon Chito Vera versus Rob Font? And how we all thought that Rob Font was going to style on this guy. Rob Font is another boxing heavy style like Aiemann Zahabi. Aiemann Zahabi isn't very mobile on the feet. He's good at kiting people back into his range and then closing the distance to land a really strong overhand. But that's kind of the game of Font. And aside from this, they're both relatively plotty strikers, I would say. Not the most mobile. The survivability of Aiemann Zahabi is something that's notable, but that's always been Chito Vera's thing too. So, in this fight, I think that Chito Vera will win via a random, really masterful performance like we saw in the Font fight, where he was throwing side kicks at him, and he was throwing hook kicks at the guy. I think it's going to be the kick arsenal of Marlon Vera that's going to win him this fight against Aiemann Zahabi. People discount Vera because of the fact that he was inactive in the O'Malley fight and he took a lot of damage. But think about what type of striker Sean O'Malley is, right? He's so mobile. He's always moving. Aiemann Zahabi is going to be right there for Marlon Vera to hit him, and it will be that way for the entire duration of this fight. And whenever you are a guy who just stays in the cut and you're not doing things to move laterally and keep yourself safe, you get tortured by Marlon Chito Vera. Think back to the Davey Grant fight as well. That's a guy who even moves a little bit better than Rob Font, I would say, too. And he still got torched. In the clinch, Aiemann Zahabi is going to get eviscerated by Marlon Vera. In open range, I can see Vera schooling this guy in a way that, like, we're not really thinking that it would happen right now. Zahabi is one of those, like, Dricus Duplessis type styles, but he doesn't do it as well. And at the upper echelons of this division, he proved against Jose Aldo that he's likely not going to win without taking significant damage and weathering storms. And without beating the brakes off of him, like, I mean, beating the brakes off of him is kind of subjective, but Figgy at least dropped Marlon Chito Vera before he was able to implement like an effective grappling style. I don't think that Aiemann Zahabi has those tendencies. Or he just comes out, he chins him, and I look like a dummy, but I really don't think that it happens. I think that Marlon Chito Vera, this is kind of them feeding a young prospect to him. Something in me is saying that this is just a really bad matchup for Aiemann Zahabi. Next we have Kevin Holland versus Mike Malott. Kevin Holland, it was easy for me to hate on him months ago whenever I was talking about how he's like the sandbag CEO and Kevin Holland syndrome, these old videos that I have on my channel where I'm talking about fighters who purposely underperform so that whenever they do win, it looks more impressive. Kevin Holland is at a point in his career now where he can't take gimme fights anymore. We know at which level he competes at the welterweight division, and it's around the level of testing these young guys who need to make their way into the rankings. He's a top 10 to 15 gatekeeper, and he's solidified himself as this. I think Mike Malott breaks him. And I made the mistake of being like, oh yeah, surely he beats D-Rod, right? Mike Malott is hitting with a significant amount of power. Kevin Holland is going to come out, and he's going to try his best. And he's going to try to knock this guy out because he probably feels like in his brain he can. Mike Malott isn't a fighter who's historically known for being a DPS sponge like D-Rod. So Kevin Holland's going to be like, oh yeah, I can just come out and wing this guy. Probably is just going to go for it from the first bell. But Mike Malott, he actually has surprised me by being as defensively sound as he was in his fight against Charles Radke through 5 minutes, and then finding the home for his left hook at the very beginning of the second round. Mike Malott is actually doing a better job of pacing himself. I'm not sure how he does with grappling styles, like Neil Magny, who had one of the funniest comeback victories over Mike Malott a couple of years ago. Kevin Holland isn't going to come out and do that. That's not his style of grappling. It's countering shots that people take on him and then wrapping up Darce chokes. That's how he wins through grappling. He's not the type of guy who's going to tactically expend his energy through wrestling across 2 or 3 rounds to get a late finish in a fight. And I think he's gonna get punished by Mike Malott, which is sad that I'm literally picking a Canadian over an American. But this is just the wrong American, especially making such a quick turnaround after he had been beaten up the way that he was. I think that he gets finished in this fight. Mike Malott's problem is not with chin, it's with cardio. And in a stand-up fight, he will manage his energy better than he will in a grappling one. In the final fight, I was almost not going to talk about this. Whenever my friend sent me the entire collection of the new matchups that were announced, he didn't include this one. But like, yeah, let's talk about it real quick. Fiorot versus Jasudavicius, like, this is a good fight. Fiorot, she doesn't really do things well other than hold people in clinches. And she's not really that good of a striker in open range. Jasmine Jasudavicius is a very domineering grappler and striker in this division. She 10-7 Priscilla Cachoeira. And I mean, it's Priscilla Cachoeira, but I mean, that's something that happened. Manon Fiorot doesn't have a feat like that. Look at what Jasmine Jasudavicius just did to Jessica Andrade in her last fight at flyweight. I think that Fiorot gets sunned. And I've been waiting for Jasmine to get a break like this at the top of the division because I think she's going to win super easily. This is a girl who does really bad things to our favorite women's flyweights. And if you know ball, then this is your favorite women's flyweight because she's cold. Jasmine Jasudavicius is like one of the best women fighters on the roster. And I've been saying this for some time. So I'm not going to like go get too technical in the breakdown of this. Fiorot is a smudge clinch grappler. Fiorot smudges people in the clinch. Jasmine Jasudavicius gets active on the ground and she chases subs. She probably ties up Fiorot and chokes her. And she probably gets it done without breaking much of a sweat. So yeah, that's going to be my predictions for UFC Fight Night Vancouver. These are some pretty solid fights, like I said before. I'm very much looking forward to this card. So please do like, comment, and subscribe if you made it to this point in the video. I will catch you fellas in the next one. Peace.